Greetings everyone, welcome to my favorite Pokemon list for the water type. This list, as a disclaimer, is just solely based off of which Pokemon I happen to prefer over others. It has nothing to do with stats, it has nothing to do with competitive play. It just has to happen to be the Pokemon that I enjoy using the most. Now, there are a lot of water Pokemon in the Pokemon world. It makes sense given that the planet is 2/3 water, so you would think that there'd be more animals to draw off of to create Pokemon with. So that having been said, this list consists solely off of my opinion and whether I like or dislike the Pokemon. Lanturn is the first Pokemon on this list. I saw it in Electronics Gaming Monthly. In fact, they had a full Pokedex exposed and a map going from New Bark Town to, I believe, Violet City. That sounds about right. Yeah, with this Bellsprout Tower. Yeah, it's been a long time, but I think they showed that, and they were showing different things in the game and how there was day and night. And I looked at the Pokedex and I saw there's a water electric type. I thought that was kind of weird at first, but then the more I saw it, the more I thought about how cool it would be to have a Pokemon that can spread water all over the field and then zap it with electricity, and it itself probably wouldn't be all that affected by it. That'd be really cool. And then I didn't know about anglerfish, but I kind of felt like maybe it was supposed to be a dolphin, and I know people wanted a dolphin Pokemon forever, but that's kind of what Lanturn looked like to me, or Rantan as I knew its name to be until they translated it into Lanturn. And then in Gen 3 I actually did catch a shiny one. In Gen 3 it got an ability Volt Absorb, so that made it even more it's a water type that's immune to electricity. That's pretty amazing. Well, pretty amazing until I get to some of the other Pokemon on this list, unfortunately. But yeah, I really liked my Lanturn. I favored it. Even though I didn't use it for my main playthrough in Pokemon Silver, it was a Pokemon that made it into my rotation when I played Pokemon Stadium 2. Another Pokemon that I really enjoyed using and had a lot of fun with, even though it's kind of forgotten and I don't think many people favor it, I think it's mostly the older fans that enjoy this one, Golduck. I kind of wish Golduck had gotten a Mega Evolution because there's always this ongoing talk about how it awakens to its psychic abilities, but then it stays a mono water type. And it's got a really cool design. It's very sleek. The jewel on its head is a stark contrast to the rest of its body. And even though it's supposed to be a Kappa, I think they were actually going for a Platypus. But I think Platypus and a Kappa are basically one and the same. But even so, I really like this Pokemon, and I always saw it whenever it was drawn, it was always depicted so cool, bursting out of icebergs and shooting beams out of its jewel on its forehead. And even in game, I would teach it Ice Punch. I would have it know Surf. Misty's temporary Golduck that she had was a pretty BA fighter, even though it wasn't hers and it just was a womanizer and ran away. But even so, and I recall seeing it in the Pokemon manga quite a bit, and again, it looks like a very great fighter. Too bad it pales in comparison to some other Pokemon. But that even being said, I really think people should give Psyduck and Golduck a try, because it is a pretty strong Pokemon. It's just that when there's legendary water types, it can be very quickly forgotten. But I like Golduck, I really do. Just when I look at it, it's a nostalgia thing. I don't know. Next on the list is Quagsire, another gold and silver Pokemon that when I saw it and saw its type combination, I knew I needed to use it, because here's this water type that is completely and 100% immune to electricity. And its only weakness is grass, but I wouldn't use a ground or a water type against a grass Pokemon. So that's okay. I would instantly switch it out, I thought to myself. Too bad using Wooper was such a pain. I couldn't stand using it. Even, it was really difficult, and I found that there were times when, even though it had the right type, lineup, I really just could not get, Wooper to win all that much. But then everything changed when it evolved into Quagsire. As Quagsire, it could take hits. It's very bulky. It, even though if its attacks were it didn't really hit that hard, but Quagsire itself could take the hits. Perhaps I had one that was just very defense oriented, I don't know, but I enjoyed using Quagsire for that reason. And I also enjoyed that it was like more laid back, because a lot of the Gen 1 Pokemon, they were like, with exemption to maybe Lapras, they were always depicted as having like a violent nature, whereas Quagsires are kind of slower. They're more laid back, but I guess that goes into line with the fact that it's very defensive. I continue to use Quagsire over the generations, changing its move set depending on what new moves came out. Currently, I like to have mine know Sludge Bomb, just because if a grass type Pokemon does appear, it has that move that it can use. I also like to teach it Ice Beam, Earthquake, and Surf. I realize that it's like 3 special, like that's a kind of a mixed attack, but I like to keep it with the Earthquake, just because Earthquake is such a classic move, and even though Ice Beam and Surf still are too, I don't really have many like moves that I go to for Quagsire other than those, and I'm always very happy with them, and they're hard hitting, so who cares? I like Quagsire. How could you not? Look at those beady little eyes and that big smile, and it's just very friendly looking, isn't it? Like, you just kind of want to cuddle a little bit with it. Next on the list is Floatzel. Its pre-evolved form Weasel is pretty cool too, but I'm just going to keep Floatzel on the list by itself, just because, well, it was one of those Pokemon that when I saw, I immediately knew I wanted to use. When I saw it in, I believe it was Pokemon Ranger with Manaphy, it was one of the bridge Pokemon that links together Gen 3 and Gen 4, even though we didn't get it until Gen 4, you know what I mean? With the flotation device on its back, the propeller tails, and that orange color, which doesn't really say water type, like, there's nothing aquatic about that. It's just like, it doesn't even seem like it would be a water dwelling animal, but it is, and it's so fast. And then it had that really cool move Aqua Jet, which we never saw before, but it seems like a lot of water Pokemon have. But still, like, it just had that coolness factor. And then when I had to fight the Elite Four, right, I wanted to go see if it had any, moves that it would have learned before, like Weasel can't learn them, but Floatzel does at a lower level, if that makes any sense. And it had Ice Fang. That really made the difference when fighting Garchomp. Like, Floatzel really was a hard hitter on my Diamond and Pearl team, so of course, I'm going to look back to Floatzel and have fond and warm memories. The next Pokemon on the list is Poliwrath. Poliwrath, again, is another Pokemon that, when I eventually got Pokemon Red, I decided to try out Poliwhirl, because it seemed like Poliwhirl was like a Pokemon they were really pushing to be an iconic Pokemon, and I really wanted to try it out, and it just seemed like everywhere you look, like, it was one of the Pokemon they would always have in the background, like, and even in the Pokemon manga, Red had a really strong, like, Poliwhirl, so of course I wanted to try it out too, and eventually I did evolve it into Poliwrath, and it's a very solid Pokemon. I just find that sometimes when you're trying to use it, it can be a little bit hard to level up, because there's like flying types everywhere, or you come across a Pokemon with a grass attack that shouldn't, like a non-grass Pokemon with a grass attack, like just something happens where it'll get hit, and I find its type combination doesn't really reduce any of its weaknesses. If anything, they just pile up, so that can be deterring from a lot of people to use it. But when you read in the Pokedex how it becomes an even stronger swimmer, and again, you see, like, it's a good Pokemon. It has a very deep move pool. It can use powerful moves like Submission, it can use Mist Punch, Focus Punch, Focus Blast if you're going for a more special attacker, though I think Poliwrath prefers to be a physical attacker. But even so, with Mind Reader and Dynamic Punch, oh yeah, you can pull up some good moves. Plus it has access to Hypnosis, which many fighting types don't. You also get the benefit of being able to teach it Ice type moves, as well as having a variety of Egg moves that you can go for it. Yeah, Poliwrath is a pretty cool Pokemon to use. Another Pokemon that I have a lot of nostalgia for is Cloyster. Cloyster is a Pokemon that I used as a wall back in the earlier days, just because its special was high enough that it could take special hits, but then its defense was one of the highest defenses in the game. In fact, I think a Prima Player's Guide that had Charizard on the front actually depicted it as being it's listed as having one of the highest defenses in the game, having a base defense of 400, which was really awesome. So I of course wanted to use it for Pokemon Stadium, and I did grind level 1 up. And this is back when if you used a move like Clamp or Whirlpool, or just Clamp, because I don't think Whirlpool was out there yet, it would incapacitate the Pokemon for many turns. So even if they did get a hit off on you, you could definitely take that hit, and then turn after turn, Clamp just keeps going. Then you had a move like Spike Cannon, which, yeah, it was a normal type move, but even still, it would hit for a couple of hits, and those little hits do add up. I also enjoyed like the fact that it had moves like Ice Beam, and I could teach it Whirlpool, and then later on it got Icicle Crash or Icicle Spear or both. Like it started getting more like ice moves, and it seemed like they were more specific to it. And with Skill Link, those multi-hit moves will last even longer. Like Cloyster can really be a tank if you want it to be, and I don't know, I think a lot of people forget about it because there are Pokemon that have fewer weaknesses than Cloyster does, but still, Cloyster is pretty good for its defenses and nothing, if nothing else. And I remember having to draw one, and as I was drawing it, the teacher, because I was drawing it from the front, a teacher saw me drawing it and accused me of doing something wrong. And I had to explain, and I showed the picture and said, this is what I'm drawing. And I don't know if in hindsight I should have been a little insulted, but a girl actually defended me in saying that, no, he wouldn't know what that looks like to draw it. He's definitely drawing the Pokemon, and I was relieved that, like, or the Pokemon, as she said. And I was a little relieved that, like, she was agreeing that I wouldn't do such a thing, but then at the same time, it's like, what do you mean I wouldn't know what it wouldn't look like? In any case, the next Pokemon on the list I think is a favorite of a lot of Pokemon. That Pokemon is Gyarados. Gyarados is kind of like the reward that you get for putting up with Magikarp. Like, just when you can't get any more frustrated with it, at level 20 it evolves and everything changes. As the generations went on, it gained access to more powerful moves. It gets a flying move in the form of Bounce, which is amazing because it also can paralyze. It gets access to moves like Ice Fang, which makes it great for fighting off dragons, or, you know, rock ground types, because it is a water type, so that's what you use it for. It does get a Mega Evolution, but I was never fond of it. In fact, it just looks like a shrimp to me. I don't know, it just seems like, what are you? I can't get behind the Mega Evolution at all. I know a lot of people like it. Although the shiny form of the Mega Evolution is really nice looking, I still can't, you know, get behind Mega Gyarados. But Gyarados on its own is still a pretty cool Pokemon, and anytime you saw it, like, in the anime or in the manga or, like, in the game, you know it's going to be a tougher fight until you bring out your electric Pokemon and one-hit kill it, because it had to have that balance to it. It would have been perfectly fine if it didn't gain the flying type, but at the same time, that is an edge that it has, because the ground type Pokemon that it would fight normally can't, like, you can have it switch into an Earthquake and it won't hit at all, which is just amazing. Plus it has that Intimidate ability, so that this way you can actually make the opponent weaker, so you might not take as much damage from those hits, like, that you're switching into if they do connect. But yeah, Gyarados has always been like a top tier Pokemon, so of course it's on the list. But yeah, now that's not all my favorite water type Pokemon. The list was actually kind of on the longer side, and I didn't want to make a hugely long video. If you want to check out part 2 of the list, make sure to head over to my Patreon page where you can watch. It'll be exclusive to Patreon for the remaining half of the list. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the links below to follow me on social media. Make sure to give this video a like. And as I already said, check me out on Patreon to support the gaming portion of this channel. Make sure to subscribe and check out my videos in the right-hand column. Thank you for watching.